Welcome to Teaching 2 of Business Therapy for the Kansas City Realty team. And Teaching 2 is about identity. And if I had to give one of our topics, one of our weeks, my favorite or one that will be the most transformational for you, it will actually be this week. I think that identity is the key that drives our entire life. And we have so much more control over our identity than we have been led to believe, than we've realized, or that we've chosen to use. So I'm going to dive right in with this conversation because there's actually a lot to cover here. It's succinct, but it's deep. And the reason why I think identity is so important, when I say identity, first and foremost, I think of the way that we see ourselves. Right? What is my identity? And most of us, we believe we have an identity of our name and our job title, right? We're realtors, we're business owners, right? Maybe you're a mom or a dad or a wife or a husband or a partner or a son or a daughter, right? We have all these different identities, some that are given to us, some that we have created on our own, either way. But identity is, how do you see yourself? How does the world see you? How do you describe yourself? And so for me, the way that I teach this to my clients is that identity creates behavior and behavior creates results. The way of which you move is going to dictate, or the way of which you see yourself is going to dictate how you move. Let me give you an example. If you want to be seen as a wildly successful real estate agent, right? If your identity is somebody who you're a great business owner, you're a great agent, and people love to work with you, you're going to walk into a room with a different energy, with a different swagger, with your shoulders back, with your chest held high, versus if you see yourself as somebody who's a brand new real estate agent or somebody who is still figuring this out, or somebody who's been doing this for a really long time but isn't as successful as they would like, right? The identity that you choose, the way that you choose to see yourself, is going to dictate your behavior, and that's going to create your results, which is really exciting because if we want different results, we're going to need a different identity. So I'm going to use a metaphor throughout this lesson. This is a new metaphor that came through when I was planning for this around an iPhone. I pray that y'all are iPhone users. My fingers are crossed. But there's basically three parts of an iPhone if you think about it, right? There's the hardware, that is your actual phone itself, right? There's the operating system, which Apple consistently sends you updates for, right? And then there are the individual apps running on the phone. Okay, the way that we're going to talk about it is the hardware is your body. It's the physical part of you that we're going to talk about today, right? That operating system is actually the bigger part of you, the energetic part of you, the soul part of you, the part of you that we'll get into in just a couple of minutes, right? And then your apps are those identities, those belief systems, those stories that are installed onto the hardware. And what I have discovered for most people is we're actually running outdated apps on our hardware. And if we update our operating system and then we update our apps, we can, or delete the apps that aren't serving us, we can have a completely different experience. So I think there are three layers to identity, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time on each one. I'm just going to flow with you a little bit on this. The first one is the more esoteric side of things, right? This is the part that's going to sound a little woo, but I believe that there's no reason, there's a reason why you're sitting in this room and your reason why you're consuming this content, and that you understand this, right? You are more than just this physical body. You are more than just this meat suit, if you will. You are more than your five senses. In fact, this physical part of you is the smallest part. And what I love about this body of work is it really doesn't matter your belief system. This is supported. So if you believe more in science, right, and the idea that we are all energy, right, and that matter is actually a whole bunch of energy grouped together moving really, really, really slowly, you will realize that as humans, we are actually way more energy than we are matter, right? Everything is energy, right? That is law of attraction, right, or law of vibration. Everything is energy, right? We talked about that in the energy game. So when we think about us, we are energy, and this human part of us is actually the smallest part of us, but it is the part where we do most of our work from. We try to build businesses from this physical part of us through these five senses instead of leveraging the much bigger part of us, which is the energy. And that's why the energy game, that's why I teach that part first, is once you understand that everything is energy, and that Wi-Fi signal example, you will understand that it's actually the Wi-Fi signal that's doing the work, not the human body. The human body is experiencing the Wi-Fi signal, not the other way around. Right? So that's the esoteric layer of identity, of really understanding that you are more energy than your matter. The part of that, though, that I need you to anchor into, I asked you to anchor into a couple different concepts in lesson one. Then what I want you to anchor into in this particular lesson, though, is that if I am more energetic than I am physical, and I am the one in control of the Wi-Fi signal, then I am the one who is creating my reality. So when we move from the identity of I'm the one creating this, I'm the one responsible for my results, I'm the one who decides how this goes. I'm the one who decides how successful my business is. I'm the one who decides the type of clients that I work with. I'm the one who decides, how much money I make. I'm the one that decides whether or not I choose to grow a team or stay a solo agent. I'm the one that decides if I get into luxury or if I niche down into, working with first-time homebuyers. I'm the one driving that. So the first identity shift that needs to be made in this particular lesson is I am the creator of my reality. And when you start to try that on, I'm the creator of my reality. I'm at cause. I'm the creator of my reality. As you start to try that on, think about the behaviors that you choose when you're thinking from that perspective. When I'm thinking from the perspective of I'm the creator of my reality, what behaviors are different? So for me, it was actually a doing less. The behaviors that I got rid of a lot of behaviors that were not aligned with being the creator of my reality. But I have plenty of clients who actually do need to do more, right? If I really believed that my success is inevitable, there's actually a few things that I need to start doing, or there's some different things that need to happen here. But when you start operating from the identity of I'm the creator of my reality and my energy is creating my results, your behavior starts to change because you are no longer willing to continue to put yourself in situations that are not aligned with the energy of the dream life that you want to create. Right? So the first part of energy is I am the creator of my reality. And if I believed I was the creator of my reality, what behaviors would I change? What behaviors might I add in? What behaviors have I been skipping, right? Is one of the behaviors of you as the creator of your reality and your highest and best, that behavior is that you take care of your body and that you work out every day, or you do yoga or meditation or breath work, or you spend time without your phone for an hour a day, right? It's really determining is what is that version of me who's living the life that I want to live? What do they do every day, and start matching up those behaviors. If I'm the creator of my reality, what behavior changes? And when those behaviors change, naturally your results will change because we've taken our energy and we've gotten our energy aligned with the identity that we want, and we're taking action from that place. And now we're leveraging all of the energy we have access to, and then our physical bodies are the last part to go. Right? So that's the esoteric side of it. I'm gonna move on from that and spend a little bit more time. I also want to talk about the roles that we play. This is a really, really big one. Okay. Actually, I want to go back. I want to make sure I tie us to our iPhone metaphor, right? So in the case of the iPhone metaphor, the esoteric, energetic part of you is your operating system. It is the operating system that is running. And you can see how when you think of like the operating system that is running on your iPhone does dictate how quickly your iPhone runs, right? It does dictate a lot of different things. Those upgrades are needed to upgrade your camera or to whatever the hell they do, right? I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on iPhones for the sake of this example and this metaphor, but I feel like you can pick up what I'm putting down, right? The operating system decides how efficiently the body and the apps run. So if I want to change my life the fastest, I'm going to change my operating system. That's why identity is so hardcore. But the first part is identity is such an important part of this conversation because my operating system has to be aligned with the life that I desire to create so that my mind and my body can get on board as well. So, in spiritual words, this is mind body soul connection, right? This resonates in spiritual worlds. This resonates in science. As I said before, I feel like this message, again, regardless of your belief system, supports it. But when you think of your identity as your operating system and the fact that I get to actually design the operating system that is most efficient, that runs my life the way that I want it to run, right? Because you're the creator of the operating system. And, the iPhone example, Apple is giving us it, right? Like you get to decide what is the operating system that I'm going to run on. And most of us are running on an operating system that is not ours. And so that's where I'm going to get a little bit out of the esoteric and move into some of the identities that we play from a perspective of the roles that we have been given, right? So there are some of the roles that we've given ourselves, right? Some roles we've given ourselves. We've chosen to be realtors, right? We've chosen to be business owners. Maybe you've given yourself the role of mom or dad or whatever that looks like for you. Those are roles that we wear. But again, they are not who we are. Because remember, you are more energy than matter. Those are just roles that you play. What has wind up happening for a lot of people is we've mistakenly taken on roles that we play as our identity. This is a big part of which actually led me to the energy game was I had taken the role of business owner and, financial provider to such an extreme level that I couldn't even get past that, right? I was so obsessed with building this business that I lost all the parts of me that made me fun, that made me magnetic, that allowed me to tap into that energy, right? I'd stopped worrying about the operating system and really got stuck in the apps, right? I was just trying to change the game by just changing the apps. But if you're running on an operating system, it doesn't actually matter what you do with the apps, right? So the apps are our beliefs. The apps are those roles. I hope that this metaphor is landing for you. So the roles that you have. So one of the exercises I'm actually going to have you do after this is going to be some homework, is really thinking through what are are the roles that I play in this world? And how many of them do I genuinely enjoy? And sometimes it's like, are there some that I need to get rid of? Or there's some I just need to update my beliefs around, right? Are there some beliefs that you need to? So maybe you have a role, let's say as a mom. I know there's plenty of women sitting in the room listening to this, or maybe it's as a dad, right? That's the role that you play. But maybe the role, the way that you have been told that the role of parent shows up is that you have to, be a slave to your kid's schedule, and you don't get to have a life, and you don't get to have any hobbies because all of your time is spent with your kids, and all of your energy is given to your kids, and all of your money is given to your kids. And so while being a parent is really fulfilling, gosh, it's exhausting, right? That is the role of parent that most of our society has. And so while most of us take pride in being a parent and those things, oftentimes it comes with this really heavy role. So I'm not willing to get rid of the role of mom, right? That wasn't up for discussion for me. So I had to change the way I saw being a mom. I decided to stop seeing being a mom as this excuse to hate my life and to be a slave to my children for 18 years and not do what I wanted to do. And I decided that me being the best version of myself was actually what made me a better mom, right? I wasn't going to fall into this story of what we're told of how stressful it is and how crazy it is and how chaotic it is and how your life isn't your own. Like, that's not a role I want to play, right? I want to build my life and I want to raise humans while I do it. So we get a choice here, right? If we're not willing to get rid of the role, can we change the story that we tell about the role? Can we change what we're willing to accept? And this is what's updating those apps, right? Maybe your mom app or your dad app or your parent app just needs an update, right? Same thing with realtors. I talk a lot about this with real estate agents, right? The identity of realtor, for most people, when we think of the role of realtor, what I see, I'm in a lot of Facebook groups. About 60% of my business is real estate agents, to just put it into perspective for you guys. And when I hang out in Facebook groups full of realtors or go to realtor conferences, like, there's a very specific identity that y'all were given as realtors, right? First and foremost, most people don't like you. They don't want to pay your commission. Your commission is constantly being discussed. A lot of people think you're just glorified door openers. They don't respect the professional services part of it. It's not seen as a real profession. And you are told that every single time you close a house, you're now unemployed and you have to go get another job. Right? That is the identity that I've heard, and you guys can discuss amongst yourselves whether or not you think that is the identity that you have, but I don't know about you, but that's not a role that I want. I don't want that role. What I want, for you, think about what role do you want? Do you want realtor to be a way to help people, the way to serve people, the way to provide for your family? Being a real estate agent is one of the best choices that I have ever made. I know for a lot of people, it's really hard for them, but for me, it comes really easy and naturally to me because I love the work and I love the clients that I work with and I love the people that I work around and I love running a business and the freedom and the flexibility that gives me. I love the financial opportunity that comes along with being a realtor. I love that the clients that I work with actually really value the services of a real estate agent. They really value working with somebody who's a professional and they see how that is so important. And I really love viewing my real estate business as a business because when I look at it from a business owner, I just show up a little bit differently, right? Do you see the difference there? Nothing has changed. The role is still realtor. The story that you tell about the role, the job that you give a role is up to you. So again, most of us inherited some of these roles and then the belief systems that went along with those roles. And that's actually part of what is causing a lot of challenges is you think that that's just the way that it is for real estate agents, or that's just the way life is for parents. And it doesn't have to be. And the way that I always look for this when I think about this, because my brain is just like yours. And I'm like, well, how do you know? Like everybody I know is having the same experience I'm having, Ryan. What do you know? Because there is somebody in the world somewhere, a realtor or a parent, not having the experience that the rest of the world describes. There's a realtor out there that has never struggled a day in their life. There's a realtor out there that has had more business that they know what to do with. There's a realtor out there who has never had somebody negotiate their commission, or they've never taken a client that was willing to negotiate their commission. So we know that the identity that the average of the industry has is a choice because not everybody lives inside that identity. Same thing with parents. Not every parent is exhausted and frazzled and living in a world of chaos. Some of them are well rested and connected and great parents and live in a world of peace. So the identities are the rules, they're the averages, they're the programs, they're the expectations, but they're not written in stone and you don't have to engage them. When you play the energy game, you get to decide, what does this role mean? What do I want this role to look like? Because I don't want it to look like the role that the world gave me. I don't want it to look like what everybody else looks like. I tell myself that every day. If it is normal, if it is average, if this is how everybody else does it, I probably don't want to do it the same way. And I don't say that to be flippant. I don't say that to be arrogant. I don't say that to be a jerk. I say that because when I look around with the world, especially in a business perspective, I don't want what most people have. I don't want a business that struggles. I don't want to work with clients who don't want to pay me. I don't want to have to negotiate over price. I don't want to have to pretend to be somebody I'm not to do business. So I'm not willing to play the game that everybody else is playing. That's why we're playing this game. But it starts with, how do I see myself? Do I see myself as that exhausted, overworked realtor who's fighting for every percentage of commission? Or do I see myself as a business owner and a realtor who's highly respected and sought after by clients who want to pay me? Because remember, identity dictates behavior and behavior dictates results. When you have the identity of the realtor that people love to pay you and you're highly sought after and you're respected, your behavior changes, your marketing changes, your prospecting changing, your client communication changes, the way you walk into the office changes, the way you walk into the bathroom in the morning changes, right? When you change the way you see yourself, your behavior will change. As your behavior changes, your energy will shift. And as your energy shifts, your results will change, right? So let's talk about then traits. So we've talked about the esoteric part, right? We've talked about that. That's our operating system, right? And so some of these roles, I'm going to call the roles are the apps, right? And so we're starting to update some of our apps, right? We're starting to update, what do I want my realtor app to look like? What do I want my mom or parent app to look like? What do I want my, whatever app to look like, right? So now we're going to get into some details, right? Of what are the traits, the personality traits that we have, right? That are individual to us. So when I talk about the identity of like parent or realtor, those tend to be some industry-wide or society-wide, at the very least, American-wide concepts of the profession, right, or the role, right? But there are the individual traits to us that we have been told most of our life. Like we've been told we're too loud, or we've been told we're too much, or we've been told we're quiet, or we're shy. Sometimes we say, I'm an introvert or I'm an extrovert as an excuse as to why I will or will not go to an in-person event, right? Some people will say, I'm a perfectionist, or some people are people pleasers and don't want to admit it. That's a thing. Some people just say, I can't help it. I'm a people pleaser, right? Some of us have the identity of, I'm somebody who just struggles. Things are just harder for me, right? We have these traits and these stories. So we went from the esoteric level, right? The energetic level. Then we went to the roles. And now we're digging into what are the personality traits that we have, again, most likely been given or have been developed in regards to life experience, right? And then let's start shifting those. Do you want to be a perfectionist? For me, the answer is no. Perfectionism is just another form of fear, quite frankly. And perfectionism, it doesn't serve anybody, right? Done is better than perfect. And nobody expects perfect from anybody. Why we expect it from ourselves, I don't know. But how many times in a day, if this resonates with you, if you said, I'm a perfectionist, I can't help it. Like there's nothing you can do about it. But you can. You're making a choice to be a perfectionist, and there's something energetically underneath that, right? You're making a choice to be a people pleaser and to make other people's needs more important than your own. You're making a choice to continue to struggle because if you do this work, that's not necessary, right? So when we start thinking about, do I want this trait? What are the identities that I wear, the traits that I have, the ways that I label myself, right? Some people will label themselves as lazy. Some people will label themselves as high achievers. Some people will label themselves as, unmotivated. Whatever that is, those labels are legit, right? Like what you say out loud, right? We talked about this. Your thoughts, feelings, and actions are important. The thoughts that become words, when you say, I am lazy, God says, okie dokie, right? When you say, I am a high achiever, and God says, okie dokie, right? You get to decide what this looks like. But these are all different layers of identity that are dictating how we show up, right? Because let's talk about the behavior of a people pleaser. The behavior of a people pleaser is putting other people's needs above their own, right? That is the behavior of a people pleaser. When I stop seeing myself as a people pleaser, if I start seeing myself as I'm the asset, I'm the most important part of this equation, my needs, wants, desires are actually what need to be prioritized here, I'm going to give a completely different behavior in a negotiation, in a transaction with a client, right? I'm no longer going to do that. And to show up in that way. So that's what we mean about the identity dictating behavior. If you think that you're lazy, boom, you're going to wind up lazy, right? And again, it might not be your thought. Maybe your parents told you you were lazy and get your ass up off the couch, go do something. I don't know, right? But so often we have done this. For me, it was struggle. The identity I was given growing up was one of struggle. I was always made to believe that I could do whatever I wanted. I could have whatever I wanted, but it was going to have to be hard. I was going to have to work hard for it. I was going to have to do things I didn't want to do, right? So I, for many years, had the identity of being the hardest worker and somebody who had to struggle for everything that they had, right? And to a certain extent, did that serve me? Totally. But long term, does it, right? The inability to stop working because I feel like if I'm not working hard enough, I'm not going to get what I want, eventually became an identity that was no longer serving me. Another one that I had was Being a bitch, right? I became that person who, if you needed something done, you called me. I would make the difficult phone call. I would tell them how it was. I would show up and be like, listen, you're not going to like this, but you're going to do what I want you to do. That was an identity that I had taken on. And I tell you what, that identity got results, but it didn't feel good. It wasn't aligned with who I am. And it's actually, I would say, one of the most difficult parts that people tend to have with the identity work is oftentimes some of the identities that we wear, they are getting us results. But the question I always ask myself is it worth it? What is it costing me to get this result? Having to be a bitch every time I wanted to get a result, being the one that people came through to be mean to people, like that was not a price I was willing to continue to pay anymore, right? It just wasn't worth it. So again, some of our identities serve us well. The high achiever identity serves most of us very, very well until achievement becomes an addiction, right? Until it doesn't matter how much we achieve, it's not good enough. Until we don't know our value if we're not achieving, right? So some of these things, I'm not saying any of them are inherently bad. The question I'm going to ask you in this particular lesson is to ask yourself, is this identity serving me? Is it really serving me to be a perfectionist? Is it really serving me to be a people pleaser? Is it really serving me to be the hardest worker in the room? Is it really serving me to be lazy? Yes or no? And again, you might discover that the answer is yes, and that's amazing. Boom, let's keep going. But I found a lot of my identities that I were running were performance or expectations or what I thought successful people looked like, right? I just thought being a bitch was part of the gig, right? I just thought that was a price to pay, right? Sorry, not sorry, get out of my way. We've got work to do, right? But all of this, right? Understanding the energetic piece, understanding the roles, understanding the traits that we have. These are all the apps that we have on our phone that we can choose. Do I want to delete this app? Do I want to delete people pleaser? Or does people pleaser just need an upgrade? I suggest you delete people pleaser. Please delete people pleaser. Anytime you put somebody else's needs above your own, you are abandoning yourself, and there is nothing energetically aligned with that, I promise, right? So let's delete that app, right? Decide, do I want to keep people? Do I want to keep perfectionist? Again, another one I highly suggest that you delete, right? So you get to decide. And then you also get to decide, what do I want to download, right? What apps what identity do I want to have? Like for me, I think of the identities I want to be the type of person that things just happen easily for me. Like I'm just the type of person that things just work out for me. That is the identity that I have downloaded since I started doing this work. Things just work out for me. They just have a way of working out. They just have a way of coming together perfectly. It just works out for me. That's just who I am at an identity perspective. And what do you know? It's true. What do you know? It's true. So let's talk about some of the resistance that you're going to have to identity. And then I'm going to close us with an exercise that I think you're going to find really, really helpful if parts of this conversation are maybe feeling a little esoteric or a little like, okay, you're giving me a lot to think about. What do I do with this now? I'm going to go ahead and kind of go through that with you now. Okay. So the first thing I want to talk about is circumstances versus identity, because this is a really big one, especially for those of us that are maybe, over the age of 40. This might be happening to you if you're younger as well, but it was around where I started to notice. They say the average age is between 38 and 42. We start to ask questions about like, who am I and what am I doing here, right? But circumstances for a lot of people winds up dictating identity. So what I mean by that is like, we'll say that there's an event in our life, and maybe the event is something really good, right? So maybe the event in their life is I won the lottery, right? And now the identity is lottery winner. And so that is an identity that you were given. Well, that might be helpful, right? If you want to continue to win the lottery. I don't know. That's why the example that came to mind. But there are also events in our life, some of them being big T trauma, which you should absolutely positively work with a therapist on. I know that you guys are very open to mental health in that conversation, but there's also events in your life. Maybe it's a divorce. Maybe it's a bankruptcy. Maybe it's a time a deal fell apart. Maybe it's this is your fourth parlay into being a business owner and being a realtor and all this other stuff, right? And you're like, well, this one time I quit the business, or this one time this thing didn't happen. And you've made that event, that circumstance, your identity. This one time I failed. This one time things didn't go the way that I wanted to. This one thing that didn't work out for me. And now that's my identity, right? We have to be really mindful of that. And like I said, I find the more experienced we are in our careers, the more of these circumstances start to define us, right? Like my circumstances very much, my $1.2 million year absolutely positively defined me in every way possible, right? So when everything fell apart, I did not know who I was. I was completely lost because my entire identity was wrapped up in being a successful business owner. And now I am no longer, in my opinion or my perspective at the time, a successful business owner. Who am I? Right? And many of my clients wind up in my inbox. That's the conversation. Who am I? And it might very well be the thing you're thinking right now as we go through this. You're like, I haven't even given an ounce of thought to my identity, maybe in decades. And I don't want you to beat yourself up over this because I think this is very common. This is not a common conversation. I shared that with you guys in the beginning of Teaching One, and the fact that that Dan and Melissa and the team brought this work to you guys because most people aren't having this conversation, right? Most people aren't having this conversation. So this might be stirring up some uncertainty in you. This might be stirring up some like, holy cow, I've never really given this any thought. That is okay. You're not late. You're not behind. This information found you at the exact right time that you are a match for it, right? So that final piece of identity that I want to give you is, what are those circumstances that we have held on to? For most of us, they tend to be the negative events in our life, right? Most of us, it's like that divorce. You know, I'm the divorced woman in our family. I let my family down because I got a divorce, or I filed bankruptcy and this thing happened, or, you know, I was supposed to be a wildly successful doctor, but I decided to tell my parents to F off and I became a realtor and now I'm not thriving and this was the worst choice of my life, right? You know, I'm just making things up at this point in time, but your circumstances are not your identity. They are just circumstances. So you can give yourself permission to let those go. Okay? Now that I've taught you all about identity, we're going to talk about how do we start intentionally building our identity? Because really in the first part of this, what I've given you is a lot of things to think about in the terms of identity, right? I'm not really going to address energy in this next part of it because I feel like we're clear on that, right? Like you guys, the energy game should have covered that. We should be really clear on that. We're talking more about what's the identity of the person who lives my dream life. Right. So we're going to use what I call a wheel of life exercise, and I'm going to give you guys a PDF that you can print and go through as well. It came from another program of mine, so you'll see it like says section 6 on it, but it's still really relevant. But I want you first and foremost to choose one identity. What is the identity of the person living your dream life? And so it could be like, for me, my identity of the woman living my dream life, she is the happy woman. That is who she is. That is the identity that I seek to embody every single day of my life, knowing that when I embody that, the behavior that follows that dictates my results, right? So I've spent a lot of time really crafting who is the happy woman. Like, what does she want out of life? So for you, maybe it's the powerful leader, right? Maybe you're the unbothered agent. Maybe you're the successful business owner. Maybe you're the first millionaire in your family. I don't know, right? But I want you to really think about, feel free to use AI. ChatGPT is always really good for these types of exercises, to think of what is the one identity of the person who has it all in your life, right? And what's so cool about this work, what I love about this work more than anything, is that when you do this, when you focus on the business, it's not just your business that's going to change. Like the benefits that so many areas of your life are going to experience when you start operating from this identity is bananas. But play around with what's that identity. And then what I want you to do is, I actually have this wheel of life exercise, and you'll see here as you go through the PDF that there's a handful of areas of our life, right? Like, so identifying our spirituality, our money, our work, our health, our fun, our environment, our community, our relationships, our love, and then personal growth, right? Those are all the areas. Well, so you'll see in here, the first activity is to actually rate each area of your life from 1 to 10, right? I've never combined this with identity, so this is going to be really fun. But I want you to rate each area of your life from 1 to 10, right? So with money, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being like, holy bananas, it's incredible. 1 being like, let's not talk about that, rate it, right? So I want you to go through and I want you to do that. I'm having you do that on purpose, very intentionally. Okay. So do that first. Here it says highlight areas that are below an 8, but I actually want you to do this for every area. Highlighting the areas that are below an 8, because my goal when I work with clients privately, and my goal for you all going through business therapy, is that we move all of these things are an 8 and above. Like all of these things are an 8 and above. That is success for me with my clients. When your environment is an 8, right? You love where you're living and what you're doing. When your spirituality is an 8, right? You're connected to whatever it is you believe in. When your fun is an 8 and you're spending a lot of time doing those things, like that is what I strive for myself and my clients, is that every single one of these areas is an 8. So we want to craft the identity of the person where every one of these areas is an 8 and above. Every one of these areas is an 8 and above. So as you go through this workbook, it's going to show you to, define what a 10 looks like. So I want you to think of it, that identity that you chose. So for me, a happy woman, right? What is a 10 as it relates to money? For me, I can tell you clear as day that money doesn't dictate a single decision I make. I am at a 10 when money is not a factor when I make the decisions. I know that's what a 10 looks like. Okay. When you assess my current life, what score do I give myself, right? It's not a 10. I'm probably more like a 6 if we're really fully honest, right? I gave myself a 6. Why did I give myself a 6? Well, because, right, there's still this going on and that going on and this thing needs to happen, whatever your story is. And then you ask yourself the question, how do you increase the score? So for me, the answer to the question is I have to become an energetic match to more money. How do I become an energetic match to more money, right? So as you go through each one of these areas of your life, really defining What does a 10 look like? When I am that person who lives my dream life, right? I am the happy woman. I am the empowered leader. I am the first millionaire in my family. What does work look like for me? Right? But we first have to define what is a 10. That's what I believe so many people are missing is we haven't defined a 10. We haven't said, actually, work is a 10 for me when I am working with clients that I love, when all of my clients are paying full commission, when I am busy enough to feel excited, but I'm not so busy that I don't have time to like eat and sleep and spend time with people I love, right? Like really defining that. And then going through, why did you give yourself that score? So if you're not a 10 current state or you're an 8 or below, why did you give yourself that score? And then how can you increase the score? You're going to start systematically, basically building the identity of which you operate from. And when you operate from that identity, your frequency changes. When your frequency changes, what you put out, right? Your Wi-Fi signal changes. When your Wi-Fi signal changes, your results change. That's why this work is so important. That's why I'm just obsessed with this, because I think that it just becomes such an easy way to think about, okay, if my health were a 10, this is what that looks like. Here's what it currently looks like. These are the things I'm not doing. Like immediately it's going to become very, very clear to you why you're not a 10 in those areas. Am I saying that every single one of them is going to be easy to all of a sudden become a 10? No, absolutely not. I am not proposing that. But I am proposing that awareness is first step, right? Like when I started doing this work, I had not asked myself these questions in decades. Like quite honestly, when you graduate from college and they like take the career readiness exams and those types of things. But like since then, I never really sat down and took a whole assessment of my life because my identity was successful. And so I stopped asking myself, how does fun feel? How does health feel? How does, what is fun, fun, health? I'm going through the examples right now. Like, what does my environment look like? I stopped asking myself those questions because all I was doing was optimizing for work and money. So at one point in time, I would have told you, back in 2020 that, my work was an 8 and money was an 8 because I was making a lot of money, but like my health was a 2. My relationship was a 2, but I was ignoring that. When we balance that out, right? When we have more higher scores, when everything is a higher score, your frequency is naturally going to be higher. This is the energy game. The higher the frequency, the better you feel, the better results. That's why when things get lopsided in your life, meaning you're all in on work all the time and you abandon the fun and you abandon your health and you abandon your environment, your family, and you don't worry about those things and you just go all in on work, even when you win, it doesn't feel right. Right? That was my personal experience, So I find that if we can just raise the average across the board, we can have dramatically different experiences of our lives because we start to think about our identity differently. But we get to dictate this, we get to decide. And so what we're doing here in this particular lesson is really deciding what is the identity. That is the foundation that I am playing the energy game for. Because again, that identity is then going to dictate my thoughts. If I am the first millionaire in my family, I can't have the thought that millionaires are assholes, right? I can't, those two thoughts, they don't match up. The identity doesn't match up with the thought. That means that I'm not an energetic match, right? If I want to be the empowered leader and that's the identity I want to have, and I think that nobody respects me and nobody likes me and nobody listens to me when I talk, those two things don't match. So we need to start thinking, right? When we start thinking like that identity and we start to feel into that a little bit more and we start to take action from that place, we naturally are going to start to show up a little differently and our energy is going to shift and it's going to be really exciting and really amazing to watch this happen, okay? So your homework. This lesson is a little bit shorter, but I covered a lot. I know that I went really, really deep, right? So just give you a little bit of a recap, right? We started with the 3 layers of identity, right? We started with mind, body, spirit, right? And so our spirit, our operating system, right? We think about our iPhone. Our operating system is our identity. That's how important this lesson is. So while it is a short lesson, it's one that's going to probably get a lot of reflection and be okay if just like the reflection you guys do as a group together, this is not necessarily work you do once. Like you don't just sit down and do the wheel of life and never do anything with it ever again, right? It's something that's constantly evolving and growing and changing because again, as your energy changes, as you change your frequency, everything's going to change, right? Like it's a constant growth and validation. That's the point of energy. Energy is always moving, right? Energy is moving all the time. We are expanding all of the time. These things are supposed to change. So this isn't meant to be like a set it and forget it activity. This is the beginning beginning of a lifelong journey of defining who am I being in this moment, right? As I walk into this meeting, who am I being? As I walk into this conversation, who am I being? As I walk back into my home as a day of work, who am I being? As I walk into the gym to do my workout, who am I being? As I answer the phone to talk to this prospect, who am I being, right? Constantly coming back to that, because that's the foundation. Because when I operate from an identity that is aligned, that identity that has my dream life, my thoughts are different. My energy, my feelings are different, right? My emotions are different. I'm showing up differently. I have different ideas. I'm taking action from a more empowered place. My frequency rises, and what I'm available for energetically changes. So I hope you see why this is such an important part of this conversation, because I think it's a really, really, really good one. This is so fun, right? So some of the questions, okay, in each areas, I'm going to give you these, is thinking through, if I were a 10 out of 10 for my chosen identity, what does that person believe, right? So if I'm a 10 out of 10 with my money, what do I believe about money? When I'm a 10 out of 10 with my money, what do I tolerate? I certainly don't tolerate people who don't want to pay my full commission, right? If I'm a 10 out of 10 with my money, right? What do I do daily? If I'm a 10 out of 10 with my money, what do I do every day? Do I look at my money every day, or do I not, right? What do I do every day? What do I not do anymore if I'm a 10 out of 10? So those are just give you some questions for you to play around with a little bit. Go as deep as you want to. But here's the final piece that I want to leave you with is you don't get what you want, okay? You can have what you want, but you don't get what you want. You get what matches who you believe you are. So when you believe I'm the one creating my reality and I can choose the identity of which I show up, I can choose how I see myself, you can start behaving like that person now, right? Nothing in your life has to change externally for you to start behaving a little bit more aligned with the identity that matches what you want and who you believe you are. So this is going to be ongoing work. I'm really excited to have a deeper conversation with this about you. And I'll see you guys in Teaching 3.